Reina, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, June 14th, 2023. The El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation is meeting in regular open session at 1:34 p.m. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Item number 3 is public comment. Is there anyone here to speak during general open public comment? Mr. Chair, I have no one signed up for public comment.
No phone calls either, Miguel?
Correct, Commissioner. No phone calls.
Okay.
Item number 4, approve the minutes of the regular meeting on April 19th, 2023.
Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? So, any discussion? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item passed.
Thank you. Item number 5, discuss and take appropriate action on the City of Socorro, the Town of Anthony, and the Town of Clint joining EPAT's LGC, as well as, Mr. Chair, we're also going to take up item number 13, discuss and take appropriate action to explore the possibility of having the City of El Paso Mass Transit Department, Sun Metro, join the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation as a voting member.
Okay, on these two items, I'd like to go into executive session. Jose, did you want to mention something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would make a motion that pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, that the El Paso Area Transportation Services LGC Board retire into executive session for consultation with legal regarding both items 5 and 13.
Do I hear a motion for the ability to go into executive session?
So moved.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll now retire into executive session. Jorge, you want to read the name?
Okay, go ahead. We're back on.
The board is out of executive session at 2:33 PM. Item number 5, discuss and take appropriate action on the city of Socorro, the town of Anthony, and the town of Clint joining EPATS LGC.
Okay, what we've been discussing is a letter that will be sent out to Socorro. And Mr. Estrada, what would be the proper,
So on that particular item, Judge, Chair, I'm going to defer to Mr. Landeros, who wrote the language down.
I do have it.
Oh, you have it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The proposed language would be approve and authorize the chair to provide a response to the city of Socorro regarding the city's denial of the fiscal year 2023 participation agreement.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Oh,
Commissioner Leon? The vote?
You know, I'm so used to the judge running it, I'm waiting for him to say the words. Okay, any more discussion, item number 5? Do I hear, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion carries.
Item number 13, discuss and take appropriate action to explore the possibility of having the City of El Paso Mass Transit Department, Sun Metro, join the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation Board as a voting member.
Again, do you have the language for that?
Yes, sure. The motion, the proposed motion on this item is motion to authorize staff to send correspondence to City of El Paso Mass Transit Department, inviting them to explore the possibility of joining the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
We got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I'm sorry, who's seconded? Okay. Okay, back to the regular order of the agenda. Item number 6, approve and authorize the chair to sign the interlocal public service transit and contribution agreement for fiscal year 2023 between El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation and Horizon City, City of San Rosario, and the Village of Vinton.
Mr. Estrada, were you going to address this?
Chair, I just think I could update you on this. The last time you considered this item, you had a different draft of the agreement because of things that we've discussed previously, including in executive session earlier today. The agreement was revised and changed in response to feedback that we received from City of Socorro and also from some of our own member entities. So we're asking you to approve the transit agreement for fiscal year 2023. The previous agreement that had been circulated and presented to you all was for a longer period of time. But part of the concern that was expressed by some of the member entities was making a commitment to a fiscal year when they did not yet have, the numbers of what the calculations for what the local contributions would be. So in response to that, and in response to the fact that we're kind of running out of time for fiscal year 2023, and understanding that one of the main objectives was to secure the local contributions, the agreement that you're being asked to approve and sign today is similar in substance to the previous one, but it's been condensed. Instead of having separate agreements with each of the member entities, it's one agreement with signature lines for everyone. Again, fiscal year 2024 is no longer in play. It's just this year, fiscal year 2023. And it incorporates the revised calculations provided to us by TTI, and I believe also an updated rundown of what the service is for 2023. The plan is going forward thinking about the future, including fiscal year 2024. I think of this agreement as a Band-Aid, and then I think going forward, what we're going to explore doing is drafting kind of like a master agreement, joint powers agreement between all the member entities that sets out the duties and responsibilities of all the parties with a component where they all agree that on an annual basis, they're going to make a financial contribution. And then going forward, the only thing that will be changed or that will be presented for signature and approval will be like a funding agreement based on what the calculations are for that coming year. That's how I had all that in mind when I revised the agreement as was done and then circulated to the parties. My understanding is the Village of Vinton has already approved it. So that's a summary of what you're being asked to approve today.
Mr. Landeros, any more information?
Nothing further.
No? So the motion would read as you described a while ago?
The motion would be motion to approve and authorize the chair, or motion to authorize the chair to sign the interlocal public service transit and contribution agreement for fiscal year 2023 between El Paso Area Transportation Services, Local Government Corporation, and Horizon City, City of San Elizario, and the Village of Vinton. That's the motion.
So moved.
Here a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 7, approve and authorize the chair to sign the interlocal public service transit and contribution agreement for fiscal year 2023 between El Paso Area Transportation Services, Local Government Corporation, and County of El Paso, Texas.
Mr. Estrada.
Judge, same agreement, basically, but this just between EPATS and the LGC and the County of El Paso. So my recommendation is that the motion be motion to authorize the chair to sign the interlocal public service transit and contribution agreement for fiscal year 2023 between El Paso Area Transportation Services, Local Government Corporation, and County of El Paso, Texas.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 8, discuss and take appropriate action to designate an EPATS LGC director to serve as the stakeholder representative on the Far West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee, WTEP.
Now, Jose, if you can lead us through that. I know this was the position that Sal Alonso had. He was the one that would attend.
Good afternoon, Board. Just Reina Mayorga, Transportation Planner from last meeting. Mr. Bañales and WTEP came to give their presentation. So this is to appoint a director to be a stakeholder at the WTEP meeting as transit staff for El Paso County attends those meetings for stakeholder on behalf of the county. So Mr. Alonso and myself were attending those meetings, so now it's myself and Jesus and Daniel. We take turns, but we present the county, so we would want the board to appoint a director to attend on behalf of the LGC.
So if I understand it, you all will still attend, but you need one of you all or one of us to be the director
It would be a director from the LGC,
from the board.
yes.
Okay, any volunteers?
Well, if I can ask, when does the WTEP meet?
How
Mr.
often, I guess the question is, how often do they meet and where, the time? Mr. Bañales, if you don't mind coming to the mic, please. You've had a long day. Thank you for being here.
My name is Javier Bañales. I'm on the advisory board of the West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee. And we meet approximately 6 times during the year, formally by the bylaws, but every now and then there's an additional meeting based on a need for a specific project or something that's underway. So we meet virtually as well as on-site at the offices of Amistad, which is the lead and fiscal agent for this regional coordinating committee.
What time were your meetings
Meetings are from
typically?
3 o'clock to about 4:30-ish.
Well, from what I understand, if I understand it correctly, the director will attend these meetings with the assistance of the staff that's also attending.
Correct. We would still join those meetings on behalf of the county, but yes, since we're joining those, we would still be able to, I would say, relay the information to the director that's appointed.
I'm sorry, what day does it typically happen on the week of the week? All right, I'm sorry. I apologize.
We're measuring distance right here.
The next meeting is scheduled for August the 24th at 3 p.m. I'll give you the other days for the year if you want.
Would they typically happen on the same day of the week? Is
Yeah.
that- Okay. Thank you.
Except November because of Thanksgiving.
Sure. It's on Thursdays. Okay.
And I'm sorry, so you said the location is exactly where, the location?
310, I'm sorry, 3210 Dyer, right off Highway 50 freeway, north-south freeway.
Okay.
And if for some reason you need more time to think about it, you can call me between here and the meeting, or does it have to be designated today?
I think we won't have a meeting before then.
Oh, okay.
Is the issue. But if would certainly defer to another director, but if no one else has an interest, I can volunteer to attend on behalf of EPATS.
May I interject, Board? We do have another meeting. We have another regular LGC meeting for July. So if it needs to be still a discussion, we can not make a motion today and then place it back onto the regular meeting agenda.
And between now and then, if you all make a decision that, yeah, I can do this, it looks good on my calendar, let me or Jose know, and or somebody from the staff, and we'll bring it up on the next agenda and make it official.
Okay.
That's okay. Okay. So we'll take no action on this one.
No action on item 8. Item number 9, discuss and take appropriate action on branding efforts presented by Barracuda Public Relations, LLC.
Hello, LGC board and members of the public. We're really excited to share the work that we've done for you here today. So we are beginning our process of establishing your name, your brand, your identity, and today's presentation will be led by our creative director, Gabriel Garcia, who's been working really hard behind the scenes with our creative team to come up with some naming options. We're going to share that with you today, and with some mood boards as well. Hopefully we walk out of here with a decision or a healthy discussion on a name and on a mood board that you all like, and then we can start the process of creating your identities. So with that, I will hand it over to Gabriel.
Can you all see it?
Hello, everyone. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if you need me to go ahead and speak up a little bit during this presentation. But just to reintroduce myself again, my name is Gabriel Garcia, and I'm Creative Director here at Barracuda. I've been here for about 5 years now. And so today we'll be presenting name options and mood boards, just like Marina said. And I just wanted to give us some context about where we are in the process. So we started our engagement May 15th, the week May 15th, we had discovery sessions with some participants, including some board members of the LGC. And so here today, during our special meeting, we'll be going ahead and presenting the name options and the mood boarding. And then the week of July 19th, we'll be presenting the logo some logo options, followed by brand guidelines and some additional assets. And so today we are not notably presenting any logos or any of that sort. We're going to go ahead and again do the names and the mood boards, and that'll go ahead and just inform us as we go into the process of designing your logos. So some key insights that we pulled from Discovery. Insight number 1, we are shifting younger. And so we don't have surveys to give us insight into our audience's demographics, but we know that our communities have traditionally been made up of a primarily older audience and a Spanish-speaking audience. And anecdotally, we feel like this is true for our ridership. So as El Paso County grows and the more people move into the surrounding areas, our constituents are getting younger, and we want to target a younger audience as well without neglecting the older, low-tech traditional audience. Express routes to UTEP are an example of a way to get college students to see El Paso County transportation as a viable transportation option. Insight number 2, clean, modern, and vibrant. We need to plan for possible mobile apps in the future and for the website as well. So our logo needs to be able to work on small screens and in the little square where the app would be. This means that clean and modern applications will work better when taking our growth into consideration. Certain font usage will be picked based on legibility on those small screens and legibility for our older audiences. Our buses also, or shuttles, they need to be visible from a distance and they need to be visible at night. So we need bright and vibrant colors as we go into this rebranding process. Insight number 3, we developed our persona. And so as we talked to our participants, we felt like the LGC, it takes form of a 28 to 35-year-old young professional that wears jeans and polo. So we are friendly, plain spoken, and down to earth. We could communicate with just about anyone. They're a modern person, they're lighthearted and approachable. We are professional, but still a little playful, and we are easy to get a hold of. We are a resource to our constituents and a wealth of knowledge, and we just really know about our topic. We are ready to help, and our voice and tone is personable, modern, and relatable. When people look at us, they think we are reliable and creative. Insight number 4, daily riders already know. So the ones that most in need are the ones that we reach the best. So those that are taking our transit service, our most effective way of reaching our audience has been by handing out flyers inside the buses. So this method reaches those who already take the buses. And so as we go into this rebranding effort, we're paying a little extra attention into bus stop shelters and bus wrap designs because those are seen by that same audience, but they also reach people who are yet to become that daily ridership. They reach people that are out on the roads, they're passengers, and anyone that is getting into that age where they're gonna need that transit service. So we could focus our branding efforts on those while encouraging those inside the buses to follow us on social media or sign up for text alerts for important updates on their routes that they're taking. Insight number 5, there's some low visibility. So even among our participants during discovery, we have some low visibility. The brand loyalty is not quite high. And so what this presents is the opportunity to rebrand. And this is a good opportunity and a good time to go through this rebranding effort. So a strong, properly timed launch, and what we'll need really correct funding behind it to launch a successful kind of as we roll out this campaign, that'll be something in the back of our minds. So insight number 6, progress takes time. Between funding and the process to get things approved, it takes time to implement meaningful changes. So although everyone saw us as something flexible, adaptable, and a program that listens to its audience feedback, it does take a bit of time to implement those changes. So we just want to make sure that there isn't a disconnect between what the perception of the community might be and how we feel like we are projecting ourselves. And so these insights will kind of guide us as we go through this process. They inform a lot of our decisions as we go into the rebranding process. And so from our discovery session, we gathered the following guiding principles. So for the LGC, We will provide safe, reliable, and convenient modes of transportation to connect our communities throughout El Paso County. For the El Paso County Transit, we gathered these following guiding principles. Our transit service is safe, reliable, and accessible. Our service is inclusive and welcoming of all, and we will communicate with riders in their primary language, enabling and empowering them to easily access and receive updates about our service. Bienvenidos. We are here to serve our community, and customer service is of utmost importance. We will be innovative and introduce technological enhancements into our transit systems that will make using our service easier. Lastly, we recognize the importance of being environmentally friendly and will pursue policies to protect the environment and promote sustainable practices. From Discovery, we have some other takeaways such as who we are as an organization, our audience, our competition, our design preferences, considerations, and goals. So we have a word cloud here of just a lot of words that really came up during Discovery. We have words like reliable, approachable, integrity, friendly, vibrant, bilingual, mobility, trustworthy, infrastructure, of course, transit, safe, rural. So, some more considerations. One brand is easier to manage. 2 or 3 brands could be a bit overwhelming for a small staff. The rebrand shouldn't be specific to transit. It should work on any transportation project like transit, bikes, trails, etc. The bilingual component is important because of our audience. Some other considerations is other transportation agencies that are operating in the same space as us. And so here, I have a small kind of presentation for you all on brand architecture. And the reason why it's relevant will go ahead and come up very quickly. So when it comes to brand architecture, we're thinking about kind of organizational structure. And so this is called a branded house approach. And so what this means, for example, FedEx, you have FedEx as the parent company, you have FedEx Express. These are kind of all different subsets of FedEx. And so the reason I put this in front of you all today is, as we think about the pros and cons of this approach, pros being that there's one marketing strategy, there's one brand, it's easy, there's no confusion who is behind the message. And as you roll out new services, it's easier to launch when the audience already knows your brand. This includes examples like Apple and the FedEx one that I just showed you. And this is in contrast to another approach like the House of Brands approach. So here we have Unilever as an example, and they have all these different brands under their umbrella. Another example of this that is a bit more relevant to us, for example, would be the Real Cog, where we have those kind of sub-brands of the aging service that they provide and the Conflict Resolution Center. And the reason this is relevant to us is because as we think about our organizational structure, we think about our parent organization being the multimodal transportation, right? The EPATs, LGC, El Paso County, Horizon City, all these different municipalities that are involved. And then we think about our one and only initiative right now being EPCT, the transit bus services. But as we think about our future, we know that there might be possibly other initiatives in the future. And so we're kind of putting that into perspective, and we're thinking what would be the best approach as we go into this. And when we think about certain challenges, like the limited number of staff that we have dedicated to this project, a branded house approach would be our recommendation. And it is why, as we are proud to present the names right now in a bit, we are only presenting one name for both entities. So far, are there any questions because we're going to go ahead and jump into names, but I want to just make sure to pause and allow anyone an opportunity to ask any questions they might have.
Doesn't seem like there is.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and start presenting some name options. We have 4 names that we're going to go ahead and present. And as I go through presenting the 4 names, any feedback that we might have, I will just ask if we could just leave it for the end. At the very end of these 4 names, I'll go ahead and put up a slide that has all 4 names on there, and I'll give everyone an opportunity to give us their feedback and any comments that they might have. So I'll go ahead and get started. Our current name, El Paso Area Transportation Services. Abbreviated, it's EPATS, right? This is your name, but what if we just simply shuffled around some of the words? What if we only changed like 1 word or 2? El Paso Transportation Authority, abbreviated ETA. What's your ETA? It's also the abbreviation for estimated time of arrival. It means that we're going somewhere, and it means transportation. It does technically translate to Spanish, the abbreviation. So what's your ETA? Our parent organization would be known here in this case as the El Paso Transportation Authority, and our initiatives would use acronyms. So that would mean that our transit service, for example, could be ETA Transit. That is the El Paso Transportation Authority, ETA. Second one, as we think about our community, as we think about our region, and as we think about our landscape, and as we think about our mountains, here we are thinking about our geography and the kind of, we're thinking about these natural trails that are seen in our landscape. And so here is something as a result of having the mountains, as the water finds its way and creates these natural kind of trails, they create these arroyos. And so for our second name option, we are suggesting Arroyo Transportation Coalition. Arroyos, like I mentioned, they form these natural paths. And in these paths, we see what could be a walking trail, what could be a map. We see something that implies, that not only makes that connection to our community, but kind of implies travel in the way it kind of makes its mark on our landscape. It kind of implies these trails, these maps, and implies transportation in a way. So Arroyo Transportation Coalition. It could be seen as Arroyo Transit, Arroyo Bicycles, Arroyo Trails, Rideshare. And that is the Arroyo Transportation Coalition. Excuse me, I can't roll my R's right now. For our third name option, we are thinking about our skies. And everyone that is from El Paso knows that we have some beautiful skies out here. And those are a bit more on the outskirts of the city. They have a better view of the sky than anybody else. There isn't as much light pollution out there. And so when we look out at the skies, we see these trails, we see these paths of travel. And we're not traveling to space, but we know that it's possible nowadays that people can go out to space, regular people, right? And so out there, we get this feeling of transportation as we look up in the skies. And so for our third name option, it's Lucero. It's the Spanish word that has a meaning to it, and it means bright star. And this invokes a feeling of a constellation. A constellation could be like a map, it could be like a walking path as well. A bright star could mean a guiding light. I'm being guided somewhere that I need to be, and I need to be connected with my community, my family here on the outskirts of El Paso, where we see the night sky better than those in the city. And we as a community are being connected by this transit service, Federal Transportation Coalition, Lucero Transit, Federal Bicycles. And here's how that organizational structure, where you have your parent organization as the New Federal Transportation Coalition, and you have how your initiatives could be named in the future: Lucero Transit, Lucero Bicycles, Lucero. That is Lucero Transportation Coalition. For our fourth and final name option, we're gonna play a little bit with words. And so it's a very sunny Saturday morning on El Paso Street, and the heat is radiating from the street itself. It's really hot outside. And the only shade you could find is inside the stores where the AC is nice and refreshing. I turned to my friend Joseph, who I met there as they're about to leave, and I asked him, "How are you getting there?" He turns to me and he says, "I'm getting there via foot, via car, via bicycle, via." Via means by way of or through. It means by means of. Traveling through a place en route to a destination. They came to Vinton via I-10, via the transit service. Viajero. It means traveler. And what if we play with the words a little bit more? Viajero. Aero. Aero can mean aerodynamic. Aerodynamic means it's efficient. And efficient means that we are being environmentally friendly. Viajero. Viajero. Viajero for our fourth name recommendation. Viajero Transportation Coalition, Viajero Transit, Viajero Bicycles, Viajero Trails. Viajero Transportation Coalition. And so what happens when you stick 10 creatives in a room? You get these four name options. And so here I'm going to go ahead and open it up to feedback. Any comments that we might have for the name recommendations that we came with you today for our rebranding effort or EPATS.
Mr. Garcia, do you have copies of this presentation that the board members can have?
We could definitely send you. The presentation after this, and I'm sure your team has a version of this presentation, but I'll make sure that you all get this one.
It seems like you all may have different thoughts, but it seems like a short amount of time to make a decision. It's sort of like going to dinner with a wife. Where do you want to go? Well, how about you? Where do you want to go? I don't know. On this, you all have some definite ideas or thoughts. Right now's the time.
Well, I'll go ahead, and I think just a matter of clarification, if Mr. Sala can just let us know. In terms of the creation of the LGC, in terms of its parameters, I think that with the market survey here is that we talk about transportation authority, transportation coalition, and et cetera. And there's examples of multimodalism, right? I mean, we talk about the MPO, we talk about the RMA and other transportation authorities, whether they're federal, state, like, et cetera. So for us, although this is just a marketing name, if you will, is there anything that's outside the preview of the creation of the LGC that we're talking about? So if we were created to do X, are we just going beyond X plus one? Is my question.
Mr. Medina, that's a really good question. And as we were receiving the presentation, I was looking at the agenda item as it was posted. And I will tell you that I did not have a lot of background information on this agenda item coming to the meeting. And so I don't have an answer for your question. But I can tell you that what I was going to propose, but it seemed to me like you were all headed in the direction of, asking for more time to consider and decide what the branding's going to be. And I think I also need more time to meet with staff and possibly Barracuda to know exactly what it is that we're proposing to do and rebrand, and then see how, how that aligns with, one, the statute that enables us, and how it falls in line with our current contracts and our current obligations, and how we would incorporate this rebranding into that. So I can't answer your question right now, but I think that needs to look into, as well as some other issues as well.
Okay.
I'll say that I think the presentation today was to, show you what the options are, but not necessarily to finalize and make a decision on, EPATS is now, Lucero or something else.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And Mr. Garcia, I apologize. We all do have a copy of your presentation.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Okay, noted. Thank you.
I wanted to add, and I know that Marina has her hand raised, so Marina, if you wanted to.
Oh, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to reiterate that we're asking you to think ahead, because a lot of the times you start one way and you could go into other ways. So we're not saying that you are going to go into other ways, but we're presenting a branding strategy with a growth mindset, because if not, you end up in quagmire. So we're just thinking ahead. We're not saying that you have to be something else. So I just wanted to clarify that. We're just looking out for future LGC, future EPATs, to make sure that you all don't get caught in, managing so many brands when there's no need to.
And what I was going to add is, when we were organizing the LGC, we did have a discussion about how much flexibility LGCs generally have in the state. And the reason we went with transportation as opposed to transit was deliberate, right? And it was because there's potential for all of that activity that Barracuda outlined to potentially happen in the future, right? So there's possibility for this agency to begin to do multimodal projects like trails and other items that every agency has, and it kind of becomes like a clearinghouse for some of that work. Or it could just stay always focused on transit, I think, is the other consideration. But I know the other consideration here is that I don't think legally we would be changing the name. I think we've legally established or registered with the Secretary of State. This is going to be more of a public-facing, doing business as type of situation, where we would, the El Paso County Hospital District, does business as University Medical Center. That would be kind of the idea, right? The brand, the logo, the scheme that the public sees and that the public understands. So, and it's kind of based on that seeing the presentation, I mean, I think it's great. I think the different ideas are, I was trying to figure out how, when I saw the constellation, I was like, this is going to be interesting, right? But then you kind of get walked through it and it makes sense. But I do think, I agree with Commissioner Leon. I think it's tough to come up with a decision today. But I know that we have that special meeting next month, and so I don't know, regular meeting, and so I'm not sure if maybe we can get a chance to digest this a little bit more and then come back with some feedback. I think right now, we had to pick one. I personally like ETA. I like that flexibility. I will say that the only drawback to that is that if we ever have issues with not being on time and like our buses are running late it becomes like a branding nightmare to be like, what's your ETA? It's like, well, you're late, right? So we have to have a lot of confidence in our system to be able to go with something that's tied to time, a phrase like that. But I do like that, and especially because it's authority, and I think that speaks to Mr. Medina's point earlier that we can start trending into this more regional transportation type of authority, bringing on partners like the city and maybe even other projects.
And I agree with you, Jose. I was leaning towards ETA, but I think we need to go to our nests and sort of think about it and any ideas that you might have. I think, well, is this going to be in the agenda for our next meeting, Jorge?
We can definitely put
Yeah,
it
so
on as an
maybe
action
we can
item for
have-
the next meeting, yes.
We can have some more definite input by that time, if it's okay with the board. Yeah.
Daniel Marquez. Hi, members. I wanted just to ask a quick question that, well, of course, to Mr. Estrada, if they have any questions or feedback on what is being proposed right now, can just direct them to the point of contact, which will be us, and for us to direct them to Barracuda, or we still have to wait until the next board meeting?
We have to wait until the next board meeting for any official action, but
Yes.
if you get questions or, you know, any type of
Recommendation.
feedback through you is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, having said that, we will appreciate you can just, Mr. Serna is going to send you the digital version of the presentation today. So if you can just coordinate internally with your entity and make comments or recommendations on the color scheme, so we can get, pretty much collect all the input, all the information, or your pretty much all your feedback, send it back to Barracuda, because just for example, if you go to from those three options, let's say that you like the wording bring our communities together, you like the wording to be in the transit bus, but you like the color scheme from option number 2. So if you have, for example, your recommendations, just send those comments back to us, and we will coordinate to Barracuda, and hopefully Barracuda can provide pretty much provide a new design or with revisions to one design they see that the LGC is moving forward, or possible different alternatives.
Okay, and also I guess a question just came up is, what happens if and when Sun Metro joins the LGC? Do we still, is that the branding still okay, or do we need to revisit it?
I think, sir, that is a very good, observation, because I think that, just looking ahead of the presentation in terms of branding, right? And I know that currently Sun Metro has its colors that are identified, and then we would potentially be looking at branding the current system that we would have. So I think if there was some type of unification of the transit system, I mean, we may be back to square one, right, with all this.
Yeah.
So I think that could be something to consider.
Yeah. There may be a need for discussion about whether the Sun Metro brand would be retained or whether it would be, the whole system would be rebranded as something now. Because in that point, it really would be a regional transit system. But there's a lot of, Gabriel, I don't know if you can bring your, or I think we're highlighting we could go back to the presentation. Gabriel, if you can go maybe back to the brand houses.
Sure. And just while we're kind of speaking on that a little bit, ahead in the presentation, as we move into the mood board portion of it, we'll kind of go into kind of certain trains of thoughts like color and how we kind of fit into the ecosystem of would be like Sun Metro and the other organizations that kind of fit in that. I just want you to all to feel confident that these are definitely things that we're taking into consideration. Let me find the part on, here's the branded house approach, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is, this is maybe one example where, there's a possibility to retain this larger brand, the Cerro, the Arroyo, the ETA, and maybe Sun Metro's buses, we kind of unify color schemes, but Sun Metro, you have the ETA Sun Metro, and then you have like the ETA, you know, I don't know, I guess, you know, kind of like you view it like the UT system, right? So you have the University of Texas, but then you have UT El Paso, UT Dallas, and so different brands, you know, so you could have ETA Vanpool, ETA, you know, the Gold Route that we have, I mean, just a number of things. And so maybe Sun Metro is just one of that. So I would think that would make sense, especially if Sun Metro becomes a member of the LGC, right?
So we can push it back a couple of months, you think, as we get closer to, no, we can't. Okay, Reina, talk to us.
Right, America Transportation Planner. So this still, if you recall, we kind of have, especially color scheme would be something we would want as early as possible because Daniel is still finalizing that design for the passenger shelters. And if we're going to change the current color scheme, then we would want to make sure that the construction phases that we go in for the next passenger shelters, we're using the new color scheme and we're not retro painting or retrofitting. And so we can move forward with construction with the new ones. And then we would only have to worry about retrofitting the current 10 that we have out there, which is less expensive than doing an entire system.
Okay, and I think it would be okay to maybe consult with Mr. Rimkus as we move forward for any possible ideas, even though they're not a voting member yet. They may be coming into the fold relatively soon. Is Carl still here, or did he leave already? He's gone.
And Gabriel, is there a second component to the presentation that you need some feedback from us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is a second part to this presentation. And before we move on to that next part, I just want to add that it is very regular for us to lead these kinds of presentations, and the client will need more time to kind of settle on a name. As far as pushing it off to the next meeting that you all might have, we had a timeline at the start, and I'm not sure how that might impact that. But I do want to say that we cannot get started on the logo component of this until we decide on a name. So I just want you all to think about that as well, in case that is something that we need to decide on sooner or later, just to make sure that we stick to any kind of timeline and how important that timeline is to you all. So I'll go ahead and move into this next part. And both of these kind of parts of the presentation, there are all these benchmarks that we had to hit as we go into the logo, right? We can't design a logo without a name. We can't design a logo without these mood boards. And so just to get started, is there anything last minute before I start the mood board portion of this that we all would just like to add?
If I could just ask, what is the pronunciation or the proposed pronunciation of the last option?
Viado.
Viado. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So next we will go ahead and present the mood board. So mood boards, what is a mood board? It is found media. It is a mix of found media and design samples. And so if you think of it kind of like a Pinterest board, as we kind of pick our vibe for the following project, and that of course means the rebranding. So each mood board is handpicked. All of these found examples that we found out in the real world, they're handpicked for each project, and they're based on key insights from discovery. So as we think about our insights from earlier, these mood boards are based on that feedback that we gathered from you all during those discovery sessions. And so why is a mood board important? It's a visual direction, and it's also alignment. And so we're settling on a direction for this rebranding effort as far as visuals go. And we're making sure that we align on that because we don't want to present something to you all during the next meeting that would be a surprise to anyone. So it's kind of a benchmark we hit along the way to make sure that we are in alignment and moving towards the right path. So again, here are the insights from earlier. We're shifting younger. We need to be clean, modern, and vibrant. That is really something where we should be. We figured out our persona. And so as we think about our current branding, and we think about our current colors, we found out from discovery that there isn't a big loyalty to the current El Paso County Transit logo that we have. And we have some examples of just the current branding out in the real world. And so as we think about the transit services that our community is exposed to, we have examples like Sun Metro, Roadrunner Transit, South Central Regional Transit, Amistad, and the other private kind of sector, other shuttles and buses, and really just transit kind of services. So I went ahead and just put everything onto a color wheel for us. So we have Sun Metro in the kind of light blue and green part of the color wheel. We have Roadrunner in that kind of teal section, South Central Regional and Amistad in that red kind of portion. And then here's where we kind of fit into that. And so if you all recall, kind of earlier in the presentation, when we're thinking about other transportation projects are kind of adjacent to us, we're kind of in the same colors as the Camino Real CRMA. But this is how we fit in the color wheel for the transit services that are in our region. And so one of the things that kind of stuck out to us during discovery was that people definitely recognize the Sun Metro buses as they come through our communities, but they don't really recognize our own transit service as much. And so because of that, we found it pretty safe to kind of try to stick to this side of the color wheel. And so I've heard some concerns about, for example, Sun Metro joining and what does that look like for us? And I just want to very briefly say that Sun Metro wouldn't really be, I assume, taking over our services and managing them for us, right? And so in that case, I don't envision them wanting us to wrap our buses with their wraps, right? Because if our services aren't on par, then that could present a problem for them. Or, you know, it is a little important to just kind of distinguish ourselves from them a little bit, is what I'm trying to get at. And we also want our community to know that we are in the community and we have this county transit available to them. And so because of that, I think we are pretty safe to stick to this side of the color wheel. Even though we have services like the South Central Regional Transit and Amistad in that kind of red portion of it, their buses are actually yellow and white. So that's just kind of something that we're thinking about as we go into this. Before jumping into the mood boards, I just wanted to bring up the word cloud again. There's words like integrity, reliable, vibrant, relatable. So these are kind of just words that I want us to have in the back of our head as we go into this rebranding effort. So these are words that really resonated with the participants in Discovery. And as part of those insights that we pulled, we felt like these were the things that were important to us. And so these are things that we want to make sure that we hit on with these words, these kind of moods, vibes, whatever you may call them. If we show a mood board that we want to make sure that it does give off that feeling of accessible, right? So we're going to go ahead and jump into the mood boards. I'm going to have 3 options for you all. And they're all going to probably be, as you can assume, clean, modern, and vibrant, like we pulled from Discovery. So those were the really important things that we wanted to hit on. And so the mood boards, it's a visual direction, like I said. And so we're going to go ahead and try to settle on one, right? Of course, if we need more time to, okay. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the first one. And this is mostly visual. So mood board number 1, clean, bright, and helpful. So let's go ahead and look into some of the assets here. Here we have some very kind of clean and legible fonts, typefaces, some very bright and colorful colors that we felt like it was important to hit on. And here we have an example. Like I said earlier, we are not presenting any logos. But I just wanted to give you all examples of what a logo might potentially look like in this context, right? So here you have an idea of how it might look like on the buses, the color that might fit on those buses, and how this might look on a phone on those signs, right? So this is mood board number 1, clean, bright, and helpful. And so we have examples when you're looking at mood boards, we have examples of how we might employ photography. We have a lot of good lighting with that. And we have an example of how the color kind of plays off of each other. Okay. Mood board number 2. Here we have friendly, accessible, and vibrant. So we have examples for you all. A similar light blue to like that of Sun Metro, but we have the really to set us apart and make sure that our community sees us. We have that really bright magenta color. And here we have some example of just a really vibrant and really colorful color palette that kind of stores more parts of this color wheel than I showed you earlier than the last mood board might. But here, the big kind of visual feeling that I hope you all get from this one is really friendly and accessible and definitely colorful. We have one more mood board for you all. And this one, we are using similar colors to like that we already have out there. So here we have impactful and reliable. And so here we have a bit of a older direction out, right? The word impactful here really just, like I said, we have real world examples of stuff that exists out there. It's not all traffic stuff, but it's just an example of how we might use graphics, how we might use photography. We could see the brightness to this color palette, right? How we might use photography and how a bus or a shuttle might look like. It doesn't mean it's going to look like that, but this is kind of an example of how these colors might play off of that. And so here we have all 3 together. Of course, there's always room for edits, I want to say. If we feel like we really love one of these, but we could marry it if it just had the color palette from the other one. Like I mentioned earlier, when I showed you all the color wheel, right, there's a little bit of logic behind why we're recommending these. And these are recommendations, right? They're all clean, modern, and vibrant. And they all kind of fit that vibe that we really want to hit on when it comes to the word associations. We get those feelings that we want to. They hit on friendly, they hit on reliable, they hit on helpful, right? And so those are really kind of the things that really kind of differentiates each one of these. And so I'm gonna go ahead and open it up to everyone else, again for feedback. And I'll give everyone a chance to kind of just voice their thoughts. And we know that we don't have to come to a decision today.
You know, Gabriel, the colors between the paper representations and what's on screen are different. So if you look at the last one, on my picture, it looks reddish, and on the screen, it looks more orange.
Yes, definitely the presentation was prepared for the screen. And so when we print these things out, the colors will change a little bit. So if it is possible when viewing these and making a decision, if you can, I ask if you view it on your screen, just because that's where the colors will really kind of shine through. I would refer to those on the screen.
Like the colors on the paper.
Again, I guess the board needs more time to really digest this.
Right, and I guess just, I may have missed this, but in terms of when doing the survey and you have the word cloud, the only question I have is that was there an intercept survey done with those that actually write the service? You know, the customers, and if they were shown this type of template?
I don't remember
Thank-
one being done.
Thank you for the question. The discovery session, and when it comes to that word cloud, that was all done through our discovery session, which includes some board members of the LGC and includes some people that are involved in just the operations, right? But like we mentioned, through discovery was no kind of surveys or any demographic information or any kind of surveys like that you mentioned done before this. We at Barracuda do have kind of research available as a service that we do. And if you always enjoy a bit more research-backed kind of, I guess, direction on this, I think even if we do research, it will align to something very similar to this, I can say. But that is something that we, of course, offer at Barracuda and can help you out with if it is needed.
Okay, well, just looking around at the board, I think, again, we're going to need more time to let this percolate, and so we can study it more and share it with some of our contemporaries back home, and go from there. Again, Reina and staff, how much time are we looking at?
Yes, unfortunately, related to that time, hopefully we can, well, today is the 14th, so hopefully we can receive comments back, hopefully no more than 2 weeks, hopefully, so it gives Barracuda sufficient time, probably another 2 weeks before the next board meeting, for them to make adjustments within the recommendations from the board members, as I mentioned, color palettes or selection, or you have additional ideas that you were visioning when these designs, by all means, because the main thing for us, it will be to hopefully at least a selection or the color scheme to be decided by next month board meeting. And the main reason, as Ms. Mayorga mentioned, is just to provide us the information, the color theme to be used when the design plans for the project, because I will need still have to run it with Texas. Of course, not the color in particular, but the whole set of packages that they need to approve, including the information, so that will allow the county to hopefully advertise a project within the next months. So as I mentioned, hopefully within no more than 2 weeks, Mr. Serna is going to send a PowerPoint presentation to all of you, and he will incorporate the deadline on when we need those comments back. We will send to Barracuda, hopefully on the next board meeting, we can have a selection. As I mentioned, of course, the main thing being the color scheme, and of course, we probably will take a little bit more time on the wording or general information.
So I just want to have a follow-up question. So you was talking about the design work, and you talked about the state. I think for purposes of those of us that are on the actual mission trail, so I guess with regard to any infrastructure that goes into place, Mr. Landeros, certainly the city of San Luis has a historic landmark commission. And so when we look at any potential structure, we would normally take it to our HLC commission. So the question that I have is for purposes of the county. I know if Socorro was going to be a joining member, maybe that would be another concern. But in relationship to the color selection and for placing things on the trail, how does the county treat that?
I believe there are no proposed stops at this time along Socorro Road. They've been identified where they could go and where they should go. But the concern that you share and that Socorro had expressed is one that the county shares. And so we look at evaluating the funding options that we have through our Economic Development Department for historic preservation to design a stop that is conducive to the character and the nature of the mission trail, and then see what the cost for that is, and then figure out how we can coordinate with TxDOT on that as well. So a separate process, the branding of which might not, match what this is, but that's really just because the Mission Trail is kind of a unique corridor, and Route 50 and potentially Route 84 or other routes might be treated just a little bit differently. So that might just be, so that's still pending. Yeah.
So what we'll do, Jorge, is no action on this, pending more input.
Before I let everyone go, I just want to say thank you all for your time. And as you take these with you, I just want to encourage us, if it's some helpful recommendations to arrive at a selection, right? Whenever we have these presentations, we always just ask if there's one or two that are a hard no for you. And if we all came at the next presentation with a suggestion, or one that we're feeling a bit more towards to, and maybe those changes. I know if we make these changes for you all, I would love it if that means that we are kind of making progress towards selecting one of these. But that's all I have for you all, and I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Mr. Chair, I know that Daniel had mentioned 2 weeks, and so just so we can all be clear on kind of maybe what that feedback looks like, and then also to Gabriel's point, just to make sure that they have some guidance from us. Maybe what we can do in that 2-week time, if the board feels like this is sufficient, is to maybe rank the 4 names in order, send it over to staff. Or if there's, if you don't want to rank one because you just hate it and you're like, I absolutely don't want it to be this, we just say, don't do that. And then on the color schemes, maybe same thing, right? A, B, C, or I like A, but maybe would replace one color with, with another color or something like that. And then I think that's the feedback that Barracuda can use. Gabriel, is that right? Like if we gave you this summary of the 5 of the feedback from the board, and then you took that would be enough for you to then be able to revise things and come back with something in July.
Yes, that is correct.
I think I'd like to just discuss one thing here. So I joked that I preferred the color schemes on paper versus the ones on the screen. And so I don't know if that is a consideration to look at, maybe using a different shade of pink and blue on option 2. And maybe the lime green versus the yellow in option 3, but I may be in the minority on the board, so.
No, I think it's important because I think if we talk about the hue, right, the actual RGB value or whatever color theory you're using, if we can have the actual value, because I'm actually colorblind, so I have a very hard time between black and dark blue. I have to do a double check of what I'm wearing every day, but I think it would help if we had the color value.
So we can get back to the staff within two weeks, and I like Jose's idea of ranking them. And also, Ms. Garcia, what you brought up insofar as the ones in paper to you seem better than the ones on the actual presentation.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, option 2 on the screen reminds me of Taco Cabana, the colors, so.
Is that good or bad?
I guess it depends on who you're asking, but that's just, I liked the pink on the paper, but
I like Taco
again,
Cabana.
I mean, just one person, so.
We said McDonald's for the
The first
yellow
one.
and orange because it is different on the screen than it is on the
Right.
paper.
Okay, so we'll no action on this one.
No action on item number 9. Item number 10, discuss and take appropriate action on recommendation by the El Paso County Transit to implement a promotional summer fair starting on June 15th, 2023 through September 30th, 2023.
Yes, I brought this up sometime back to see if we can attract more riders and what the impact would be on the funding.
Good afternoon, Board. Reina Mayorga, Transportation Planner. So this was also brought up in the last meeting to allow for the free rides for the summer. What we did was looked back at ridership for last summer. We did the promo from April 1st to September 30th. And we offered that free rides due to the increase in, at the time of the gas prices were rising in February, March of last year. And we saw that there was an average ridership of 45,992. And if we had collected fares, it would have been 68,988. And so the way the fares work are towards our cost of operations. So we're calculating that there, from starting tomorrow, if this is approved through the end of September, we would not have more than a fare revenue loss of 70,000. It's a shorter amount of time. We are seeing ridership slowly increase, but it's not a big increase and a big spike for us to feel that we would go over the 70,000.
I guess the next question on that, can we afford that? Should we afford that?
Yes, we can.
And my thoughts are that this will also maybe encourage more people to ride. Then once they get on, to realize that, number one, that it's a good way to get from point A to point B, and that by that time we should have Wi-Fi also to enhance, especially the students.
Yes, so there'll be an update later on Wi-Fi, but we have seen that when we do offer the free rides in the summer, there is definitely an increase in our ridership. So we do see that. It doesn't fall off completely once the promotion is over. So I do think that it is in the best interest, and it does help to increase ridership every year.
So, members, any input?
I think this is a very good initiative.
So, Mr. Estrada, how should our language be on this one?
I think the motion should be motion to approve a promotional summer free fare starting on June 15, 2023 through September 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second?
We got a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm going to take up item 11 and 12 together.
Okay.
Item 11, discuss and take appropriate action regarding the implementation of Route 10 and 11. And item number 12, receive a presentation from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, TTI, on recommendations for proposed improvements in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, and take appropriate action on proposed service plans.
Good afternoon, Board. Reina Mayorga, Transportation Planner. As at our last meeting, we were discussing the board directing staff on service plans for fiscal year 24 and 25. So this will be the presentation that we received from TTI today.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Michael Walk. I'm with Texas A&M Transportation Institute. Good to see several of you again. Like it's been discussed, I'm here to talk to you about the proposed service plans for fiscal year 24 and 25. Once the PowerPoint is up. Oh, if I just click it? Yes. Oh, I was waiting for something special. Okay.
Right now,
Maybe
are you
just
sharing
advance
are you sharing the PowerPoint, Reina?
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll do the next slide, please, I guess. That works. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if my clicker is actually working or not, so.
No, yeah, because
Yeah.
the presentation is being shared differently. It's not like our Commissioners Court meetings, so
Okay.
you do need to stay next slide.
No problem, I can handle that. Okay, so the main goal of today is to obtain action from the board regarding fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 service plans. Fiscal year 25 at this moment is an optional item, given that the priority is for fiscal 24, since that is coming soon. What I'll present to you today will be a two-step process. First, I'll be asking consideration about an implementation option, because we're going to talk about big picture timing issues when it comes to implementing the different components of the overall service plan. And then depending on your thoughts on the timing of implementation, we'll get into exactly what would be seen on the street in terms of service in fiscal year '24. Sure. I'm hoping that the graphics work right, because this is a lot different than, yeah, so I apologize in advance for any, like, for instance, this should say agenda. Hopefully you have that? Yes? It might be more guaranteed, if that's okay with the board. Not the appropriate time for dad jokes, right?
There's never an inappropriate time for a dad joke.
I will say, while she's pulling it up, certainly during the presentation, please ask any questions you have along the way. Thank you, Raina. We will be getting into some discussion of transit service planning concepts, and so with those issues, there might be questions. So please interrupt me at any time. That way you'll get the most out of the presentation. So today's presentation is in 3 different points. We'll first talk about a quick review of the prior service changes that were implemented last year, and how did that go, right? So what are the lessons learned from that? We'll also then talk about the implementation options, different service implementation options for the remaining service changes that were in the overall final plan, and what is the recommendation we'd like to present to you. And then we'll finally close with what's next. Next slide, please. And next slide. So we're going to talk about service changes, and what exactly am I talking about when we talk about service changes? So in the context of fixed route service, right, where we have buses with routes and stops and schedules, a service change is any change to an existing fixed route, which might include a realignment, right? So changing where the route goes. It might include changing the span of service, which is the hours of operation or days, for instance, adding Sunday service or running the route until 10 p.m. instead of 8. That would be an example of a span change. And a headway change is a term you'll hear a lot when, the more that we work with transit, how often the bus comes, or what is the time between buses. So a bus that comes every 60 minutes, of course, has a headway of 60 minutes. And so when we do fixed route service changes, these are the kinds of things we're talking about: changing the alignment, the span, or the headway, or implementing a brand new route. For instance, Route 31 is a brand new route that didn't run before. Route 11 is another brand new route in the service plan that hasn't been implemented yet. Next slide, please. So when implementing service changes, there's a few key things to keep in mind. One is to make sure that the service change is a valid change to do, right? It's up to date, it reflects current conditions. It wasn't a recommendation made 10 years ago and you just implement it today. Things change, right? So we want to make sure that a service change is valid. We want to make sure that when a route changes, that's clearly communicated to all affected parties. That's communities, riders, drivers. We want to make sure that everyone has adequate knowledge about the service change, at least a couple months in advance. We recommend at least 1 to 2 months. And that everyone's prepared for day one. So, if you're a rider and you're expecting the bus to show up at this stop at this time because you've done it for the last 5 years, you don't want to be surprised come the first day of a service change that the route is taking a different direction. And of course, efficiency. Efficiency is another piece of implementing service changes. You don't want to implement a service change just whenever. You want to be strategic about when you make the change. You don't want to do it too often because riders start to experience a kind of change fatigue. And so the takeaway from all these points is the idea that when you implement a service change, they should be implemented with minimal disruption to the riders in particular and to your operation. Now, we go into all of this because these are the guidelines by which we'd like to assess the service changes that were implemented in the fall. Next slide, please. So Route 30 and Route 31 were implemented in the fall. In September 2022 was the first round of changes, and then there was another modification later based on customer feedback. Route 30 was realigned. If you're not familiar with Route 30, right, that's from Mission Valley to the city of Horizon City, as well as some of the outskirts there. Route 31 was a brand new route that was implemented that runs from the Mission Valley Transfer Center through El Paso County Community College Mission Del Paso campus, and also serves the Amazon facility, and then ends up in Agua Dulce. So these routes were implemented in, like I said, September 2022. And part of our work currently that we're doing as a part of Task Order 5, when a grant funded by TxDOT, is to look at implementing service changes. Are things going well? How do you do this right? So we did some data collection in June this month, and particularly field observations, talking with riders, talking with drivers about how the service change went. And so I have 3 findings I'll share with the board today on how the service change went based on that data collection. The first finding that we would say is there is room for improvement regarding how the information was passed along. In terms of timing, right, we believe that the next round of service changes should have more time before the service change is implemented. More people should be aware of the service change. We did find some riders were surprised or found out at the very last minute. And there was some confusion about the nature of the service change. This is coming from riders and from drivers. So that's finding number 1. Finding number 2, next slide, please. Based on some of that field observations, we also learned that the Route 31, which is a new route, a few of the key destinations that the route was specifically designed to serve, that is El Paso County Community College as well as Amazon, have relatively low utilization. I don't know what the exact count is, but I know Amazon is somewhere between 0 to 1. David might, around there. So very low utilization. Why is that, right? We don't know the why at this point, but of course, that begs the question of maybe we need to do something slightly different, or service might need to be marketed better. Maybe the employees didn't really know that it's an option. Finding 3 is another issue. We'll get into this a little bit later regarding the interim routings of these routes. So you may or may not be aware, but there's a difference between what is on the street today for Route 30 and 31 and what was originally proposed in the final service plan. In the final service plan, Route 30 and 31 were a lot shorter and more streamlined because there were other transit options available for people that would lose service by shortening the routes. But the service options aren't available right now, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So the routes are currently running what we call interim alignments or interim routings in order to provide a safety net, right, for the riders that are using it today so they don't lose service, right, by shortening the route as proposed in the original plan. So these 3 findings together, you can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, this is a visual example of when we talk about the safety net routing or safety net alignment, the areas in a red that are circled in red. We're not actually part of the normal day-to-day operation of Route 30 as proposed in the final service plan that we've all been following, because there was going to be other services available like general public demand response to serve those areas as needed, as opposed to running the bus to them all the time. But currently today, what you see on the map is the alignment that's being operated, because the desire was to not leave those passengers behind, since there currently is no general public dial-a-ride service. Of course, this adds to a type of inefficiency. This costs more, right? Time and distance is money. But maybe it's worth it. So go to the next slide. I'll summarize what we've learned from these prior service changes. And so the first is there's room for improvement. Like I mentioned, we believe more outreach, more marketing, more time is important to adequately reach current riders and the potential riders who would benefit from the service change. Second, we believe it would be important to have actual guidelines or a checklist or an SOP, if you would. We'll call those service change guidelines that would guide the process about when we're implementing a service change, right? What needs to happen first, how long does each step take, and who's responsible for doing what. This is work that TTI is actively engaged in under Task Order 5 with El Paso County. The grant I mentioned is funded by TxDOT. And those service change guidelines will be completed by the end of July of this year. So with the things that we've learned, one of the recommendations that we're bringing to the board, and you will see in terms of, you'll see this play out in how we recommend timing the rest of the implementations, is to not implement another fixed route service change until the guidelines are in place and until, and with another 2 to 3 months of lead time to actually implement, right, the guidelines. And so we're recommending that no more fixed route service changes be put into place until October of this year. And all the rest of the service recommendations will assume that as a given. However, this is, of course, a decision for the board to make if you wish to delay. Is there any questions or discussion at this point on anything I've covered so far?
Seems
No?
like there is.
Perfectly clear. Okay. Great. Okay, so then moving on, so with that in mind, we prepared for the board several what we call service implementation options, and then we will discuss our recommendation. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, yes, this is the one. So you will hear some terminology used today. You'll hear this term of baseline routing. Baseline routing, or the current, is basically the current routing, where the Route 10, for instance, has gone for the last X number of years, right? That's what the customers are currently used to. The bottom bullet point is a final routing. When we talk about a final routing, that is the way the bus was planned to go in the service plan, right? That has been, that we're all privy to, all part of. So what that final routing was, the final alignment. So in between those two, like what the 30 and 31 are doing now, is an interim routing, right? It's not the ultimate desire to have Route 30 always run all the way down to Las Colonias, for instance, all on every trip, because the service plan recommends cutting it back because the ridership was very low. There are a few people that need the service. But so right now, Route 30 is following an interim route. It's not the final one, but it's in place in order to provide a safety net for the riders that still need the service. Okay? Next slide. As a reminder, when we talk about this overall service plan or the final service plan, it included several components. You'll hear talk about fixed route transit. We've talked about this terminology before. ADA, paratransit service, or ADA service, right, for Americans with Disabilities Act. That was a part of the plan. You know, the recommendation that you'll see is that this should be implemented as soon as possible and as early as January 2024. The original, right, plan did include an element of flexible route transit. Again, as a reminder, based on the direction that we've been heading, the idea is to focus on the fixed route transit plus ADA, and then bringing in the general public dial-a-ride, which is the next bullet point, or GPDR, and not be implementing flexible route services because the GPDR service will take care of, you know, providing 100% access to people in the county, and the ADA paratransit service takes care of people with disabilities and making sure they can still use the transit service. The other elements of the plan are listed here. Again, I won't get into those today. You mentioned a few of them: bus stops and shelters, et cetera. Our focus will, of course, be on the services themselves, right? The fixed route service, the ADA service, and the general public demand response, or GPDR. Next slide, please. So where we are right now, out of the overall service plan, is we've implemented the two changes I mentioned before, the 30 and the 31, both currently following interim routing, not the final routing as designed in the plan. And there was a change to Route 20, you may remember, because it was shortened thanks to the opening of the Upper East Side Transfer Center. And so the Route 20 serving Homestead Meadows does not have to go all the way into the East Side Transfer Center. As you can see, most of the plan has not yet been implemented, right? On the right-hand side of the slide, there are several other recommended service changes to Routes 10 and 11. Route 10 and Route 11 is a new route, et cetera. And so I'm not going to go into the details of the route alignments unless you want to do that when we get to the question of what's in the service plan. But these were all the remaining recommendations. Ultimately, the order of what gets implemented first, right, the priority of these, is a decision for the board. And that's one of the things we'll talk about today. So a map of where we are now is shown on your screen. If you're not familiar with the routes and the route numbers, the Route 10 is in the upper left corner, right, serving Anthony and Canadillo. Route 20 is in the middle on the right in red underneath the word now, right, that's serving Homestead Meadows. And then the rest of the routes are all in the Mission Valley area, Route 30 and 31 serving the Horizon City and Agua Dulce area. I don't know if I say Dulce, Agua Dulce. Route 84 and 50 are all in the Mission Valley area, and Route 40 is the line that extends all the way down to Fabens and Tornillo. Right, so those are the services that are currently in place right now, operating day in and day out. Next slide, please. So as we go into showing you the options for service implementation and timing these service changes, there's a few key decision points that we will talk about. The first is this concept of a safety net, and how important is it? I mentioned before, when we implemented originally the changes to 30 and 31, there were riders that were left without transit service when it first started, because the routes were shortened and streamlined. And under the final plan, there would have been general public dial-a-ride in place, but when these routes were implemented, that was not in place, right? So what do you do about riders who used to have transit service, but when you realign a route or change it, that transit service is no longer available to them? How important is it that all current riders still have access to service? And that's what we're referring to as a safety net, right? So when we make a change, somebody who can take a trip today can still take that trip. So that's one of the key decision points. And then the second is, how important is speed in terms of rapid implementation of the remaining service changes? You saw many of the service changes in the final plan are still pending. So how fast do we want to go through implementing those service changes? And the rest of the discussion will be a balancing act between these two decision points, the importance of the safety net and speed. Next slide. So I'm going to show you a couple examples. I'll try to go over these quickly because I know time is of the essence, of places where a safety net might be needed. For instance, the map you're looking at is for Route 10 and 11. The area highlighted in red, or with the red circle in the middle, is an area where the Route 10 currently cuts over from Donovan to Westway. And there are a couple of riders that board in that little area. Under the recommendations, the area is no longer served by a route, by a fixed route. Route 10 continues up Donovan to Anthony and does not turn right to go to Westway. Westway is served by a different route, Route 11, right? So those riders in that area would need a safety net to continue to be able to take service. So that's just one example. There also are some riders that travel between Westway and Anthony. Not that many, but under the new system as proposed, because that's not a heavy demand trip, right? Most people are just going down to the transfer center. That trip would not be, well, it would be possible, but not very feasible under the new system, because a rider would have to get on the bus in Westway, take it down to the transfer center, and then ride Route 10 all the way back out to Anthony, right? So that, again, is another safety net. The reason why you have a safety net is to try to enable people to continue to take trips. So you can go 2 slides. I'm not going to show the next one for the sake of time. It's the same concept. So how do we continue to provide a safety net? If we determine that a safety net is important, there are many different ways that we could do that. The way that the plan anticipated doing it, right, is to implement that general public dial-a-ride, the buses that comes on demand when somebody needs it and provides access to 100% of the riders in the county. That has a longer lead time, because there's a RFP requirement going out and getting, because this is a new service type, right? So if we don't want to wait that long, we could look at other options for continuing the safety net if we want to maintain a safety net service. When ADA paratransit is implemented, hopefully in January of 2024, it's possible there'll be excess capacity on that that could use to pick up the few riders that would be losing service when you implement a fixed route service change. And then the last option being these modified route alignments, what I've referred to as the interim route alignments, right? So hybrid between what the final is supposed to look like and what's happening today, and running the fixed route and trying to serve everyone still currently receiving, that currently has service. So there's 3 different ways to approach the safety net. Next slide, please. So I'm going to expand on using interim routing just a little bit about using a safety net. There are some downsides to that, and we'll discuss those here in a little bit more detail. One, when you're using interim routings, it slows things down. It's less efficient. It keeps the riders that are on board on the bus longer,
than they originally anticipated, right? So these are unintended consequences of using using interim routings. Also, because the routings are interim, they will eventually change again. So if you implement, like we've implemented interim routing on the 30, eventually we'll go back to the final routing, the shorter version of the route, and so we'll have to do another service change, right? And so using interim routings as a safety net has some downsides. You can go to the next slide. I'll show you the difference, the full difference between the, on the left-hand side, the interim routings of the 30 and the 31. You can hopefully see on the map just how long the routes are, and the little deviations that the routes are making currently. And of course, what was in the plan on the right-hand side is during the off-peak hours in particular, where the routes would be more streamlined because the ridership is lower and general public dial ride would be there. Right, so it just shows you how much additional length you might have to add to a route to continue using interim routings as your safety net. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're about to get to the actual service implementation options. A couple assumptions that are present in each one. First is that just because we select a service plan today does not mean that there shouldn't be minor tweaks and changes. I mentioned Amazon, for instance. If there's a better way to run the 31 to Amazon, perhaps only during shift changes, or perhaps only on certain days of the week, or it needs to be marketed better, that activity needs to continue. And I'm assuming that that was an activity that the El Paso County Transit staff, who function in that sort of planning role, would continue doing. The current routes, the second assumption is that all the current routes will continue as fixed routes, right? So we're not implementing any of these things as flexible routes. A couple of timeline items. I already mentioned that the earliest time in all of these plans we anticipate the next fixed route change would be October of 2023. That's related to the prior discussion on needing time to develop the guidelines to implement service changes and giving communities adequate time for service changes. It wasn't me. Last two assumptions are that ADA paratransit can be implemented January 2024. This looks to be a very reasonable assumption based on progress on that item. And that general public dial-a-ride service would be implemented October 2024 as a target. Okay, so all of the options have these things in common. Next slide, please. So we're going to show 4 service implementation options. It comes down to 2 key decisions. The first is, do we provide a safety net when implementing a fixed route service change? Does there need to be a safety net, right? A way to guarantee all current riders can still make their trip. So if the answer to that question is no, then option 1 would be the best path forward. I'll get into that, right? So that's just implementing the next fixed route service change, right? Going full steam ahead. If the board agrees that a safety net would be an important thing to have in place when the next service change is made, then there's different ways we can provide that safety net. I've mentioned once about interim routings, right? The second is using the ADA service as a way to do that if there's excess capacity on it. And then the last option, option 4, is to use the general public dial-a-ride service as your safety net, making sure that's in place, and then we know that everyone can make a current trip. So we'll go through each one of these routings one by one. Sorry, each one of these options. First, option 1. Now, I promise I only keep it to like 1 slide per option. So yeah, next slide. Thank you. So option 1, we call the final routings ASAP option, right? So this is the speed is our primary concern. Implement the final routings as, starting again in October 2023. There will be no safety net in this case. This gives us faster progress towards the final system design. And of course, the fixed routes that are implemented will be more efficient. They will be more efficient from a cost per rider standpoint because they'd be streamlined. They wouldn't travel long distances. The disadvantage to this option is, there is no safety net here. So there could be people, like I mentioned, the person going from Westway to Anthony, that might not be able to make that trip until general public dial-a-ride is actually in place in October of 2024. Next slide. So how does that look from a timing standpoint? After each option, I do present a timeline.
And the timeline is really an example, just to kind of put some context around the speed with which the rest of the service changes could be implemented. So under option 1, this is an example. So we could go ahead in October of this year, realign Route 50 and Route 84 to reflect the final service plan, implement Route 40X, Route 40, that all could be done in October, and then ADA Priority Transit comes online in January, et cetera. Ultimately, when these different service changes are implemented is up to the board. This is just an example of what we think is a reasonable timeline, what it would look like if we went with option 1 in order to implement the service changes. Okay. Any questions on option 1 so far before I go through the rest of the options, because the rest will go pretty fast?
So I just have an overall, because we're talking about the nexus here, right? We're talking about transportation and then the destinations or the attractions that they're going to. So the land use component comes in. So the question I have, and I have been out of the loop for a while, but when was the last time that the municipalities talked about value capture? It's like in this case, transit value capture. So I do know that there were some efforts that were led. Some people went ahead and did, oh my God, what was it called? The TRZs, the Transportation Reinvestment Zones.
Okay.
So there was major textile projects along with every other project that the MPO had led. So in this case, since we're talking about transit, and I think more specific in terms of our strategies for transit value capture, are there things that, could be looked at or be recommended to us as municipalities and as directors to be looking in terms of, a way to provide further revenue so that way we leave no one behind type approach?
So to be honest, I would say that with the plan that was the plan that was not adopted is the wrong word, but finalized prior to the creation of EPATs, right? There was some economic benefits analysis that was done as a part of that. Of course, that's probably a little dated at this point. We haven't got into, at least from our end or anything I believe that the county has done, gone into this concept of transit value capture. It could be a way to prioritize what comes first, I suppose. But so my answer to your question is I'm not exactly sure when something like that has been done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Could have just said that, I guess, in the beginning. Yeah.
Hi, Michael. Just a quick question, just for clarification for the board members. For example, the exhibit that we are looking right now, the time frame is there the recommendation by TTI on how we have to proceed? Well, just on this option, but how we can proceed on which route to prioritize, or there's the flexibility, just for example, to make adjustments to Route 20 and 21 has number 1, have ADA Padatransit has number 2. This still flexibility, or everything is a domino effect where this is first, this is second, this is third, based on X, Y, and Z? There's flexibility for that, or?
So yes and no. Unfortunately, this time I can give a complicated answer.
Yes, just for clarification to the board.
Yeah, so what you're seeing, for instance, on this final routings timing slide, right, what's on the screen right now, is an example of what TTI might recommend if the board decided to go ahead with option 1, right, which is to not wait for the safety net to be in place. And if that was the case, we put Route 50 and 84 as one of the first changes. The reason we did that was because they tend to duplicate each other quite a bit, right? And in the service plan, we unwind that some. And so that's why we put it there as our priority. The board could have a completely different priority, and it would be all, we would have to have that discussion after we decide which option we want to go with in terms of option 1, what I show you, 2, 3, and 4 later. And then the next question would be, okay, well, how do we actually want to time these changes, particularly in FY24? Because that's the main goal for today, so that we can come up with contribution amounts at our next meeting.
Okay. No, thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Good questions, good discussion. Okay, so that's the option 1, right? Final routings as soon as possible. Option 2, next slide. We just called it interim routings, ASAP. Again, this is a case where if speed is prioritized, but we still want to have a safety net, right, we implement the interim routings of the fixed routes, right, like we did with the 30 and 31. So to continue to use that same approach, still go ahead and implement the 10, 11, et cetera, but figure out how to still serve anybody who currently is using the route, right, which can work. There's, of course, pros and cons. Pros, safety net's provided, and you're actually making some incremental progress on the fixed route system sooner rather than later. Disadvantages, I talked about with interim routes, they are usually less efficient. It's much harder to navigate. The street network, it causes an increase in costs. And of course, when you have to do a public outreach campaign for the interim routing and then a public outreach campaign when the final routing is ready to be implemented. Option 2, so next slide just shows you another sort of potential timing. Again, this is just as an exhibit. It takes a little bit longer in this case to implement everything, but we still prioritize the same routes. And you'll notice that once general public dial-a-ride is in place in October 2024, then we can work on implementing all the final route alignments, right? So everything up to that point would be an interim change, and then we have to come back and change them all again. Next slide, please. So option 3 is to use ADA capacity as the safety net, right? So this is one of the safety net options. The ADA paratransit service, which again is hopefully going to be implemented January 2024, may have excess capacity. That is, we don't have a rider that needs the bus at this time, right? A person with a disability, and so we might be able to pick up just members of the general public using the same vehicles when there's downtime on these vehicles. The issue that we do underline the word potential. We don't know if that capacity will be there. It's one thing to model it and try to guess, but we don't really know if that capacity will be there. But it is an option. And so this provides the safety net and, of course, lets you get things a little bit faster than waiting for GPDR or general public demand response. But there's uncertainty. That's the main disadvantage, because we don't know exactly if that capacity will be there. We do have to prioritize the 88 trips, right? So you can't tell somebody who's an 88 trip that, sorry, I have to pick up, a member of the general public instead. And so the member of the general public may have to wait. Next slide. So this slide lays out just again what that proposed timeline could look like, and the final timing would be decided by the board. Go ahead to option 4, because then we'll have the best discussion. So option 4, the last one, is using general public dial-a-ride or demand response. I know I keep switching between both terms, I apologize. As the safety net, right? This is the service that's available on call, right, for members of the general public. It covers 100% of county residents. And so under option 4, ADA would be implemented in January 2024, general public dial-a-ride targeting October 2024, and then, and only then, do you begin implementing the final fixed route service changes, so that you only have to go through the fixed route service changes one time. And so the advantages of this, of course, is the safety net is there. This is what the final service plan actually envisioned, right? So if you look at a map in the final service plan, it assumed that general public dial-a-ride would have been in place when the fixed route service changes are being made. And of course, reduces the confusion from the customer standpoint, right? My bus used to do this, now it does this, and now you're changing it again, right? And so that's what some of the advantages. The disadvantages, this is the slowest option. Right? It requires us to wait and before we implement more fixed route service changes. If you go to the next slide, it'll show you an example of what the timeline might look like. You can see the font gets a little bit smaller because it has to fit. So in October, there'd be no service changes besides the minor modifications I mentioned earlier, perhaps to the 30 or 31 to better time it with Amazon or things like that. In January 2024, being no service changes to the fixed routes. In July of 2024, being no service changes to the fixed routes. Only in October 2024 would be when the first round of fixed route service changes would be implemented, because that's the earliest that general public demand response can be implemented, assuming about a 12-month lead time for getting the procurement started and going through all of that process, making the award and startup. Next slide. So if it isn't obvious from the way I've intoned these slides, which it probably is, I have a recommendation for the board to consider, and that recommendation is to go not fire that guy. No, our recommendation is option 4, using GPDR as a safety net, right? So in that context, we think there's a lot of benefit to waiting for the general public dial-a-ride to be in place. It's October 2024, again, is the target, and waiting for that to be in place until you make the remainder of the major fixed route service changes. That ensures that the safety net is there. What this would look like, perhaps, right, in fiscal year 24, the service plan would include any minor route adjustments that we talked about, again, like to the 20, 30, or 31, a minor change to the 10, something like that. Just basic transit planning activities, which are normal for a transit system to go through. In FY 2024, the ADA paratransit would be implemented, targeting January again. And the board could consider one or more what we call no-loss service options, which I'll show you on the next slide. And then in FY 25, everything else would happen. General public dial-a-ride would be implemented, and then the rest of the fixed route service changes would be implemented in an order to be determined by the board, potentially at a later date. Go to the next slide, and then I'll pause for discussion here in just 2 slides. So when I talked about implementing non-loss service options, these are just a couple ideas of things that could be done in fiscal year 24 that do not require a safety net, right? So for instance, adding Sunday service to all of the routes that don't yet have it, even on their current alignments, right? That could be done, right? There's no safety net needed. There's no implication of people losing trips. Or Route 40X is another example, because Route 40X is basically a commuter bus that goes down to Tornillo and then comes into the Mission Valley Transfer Center. So there's no ADA obligation for that. It could be done sooner. And nobody loses service just implementing the 40X. So these are just a couple of other options. The board might have other ideas of things that they might want to consider. You can go to the next slide. And we're going to come back to this slide if that's okay, but really quick. I tried to put all 4 options on one page so you can see all the information in one place. And in order to put context on the discussion, if we can go to my next slide. So what I see this being a 2-step process, and here's why. So one is we need to figure out big picture whether the safety net is something that we want to make sure is in place, and if so, then which way do we do it? And that is the main first step, right? And that's when I presented to you these options, the 4 options. Now, from that decision, depending on that decision, then we can get into the nitty-gritty details of, well, then what would happen in fiscal 24, right, now that we know we're all in agreement on option 4 or option 3 or option 2, right? That's the figuring out which route service changes would happen first or second. And so that's why I see it as a 2-step process. Ultimately, still needing to get us to the FY24 service plan so that we can come back next month and show you the calculated contributions based on that FY24 service plan. I will state, also I mentioned on this slide, that if the board does not want to select one service plan for FY 2024, we will be able to do probably 2. So if you say, I want to see FY 24 with these services, and then maybe show me what it would cost with or with Sunday service, and see the difference in the contribution amount, we have adequate time to do an analysis like that. I wouldn't want to go much beyond that, but that'll be up for the board to decide. So can we go back to the prior slide? So I'll leave this up because I think hopefully it's a helpful summary of the key pieces of information for each option. And I'll stop there for questions or discussion.
No, thank you. Yeah, I don't know how the board feels, but I'm looking at that option 4, and I just have a quick question insofar as slowest option for implementing. That the slowness doesn't pertain to the actual picking up of passengers.
Correct.
It's the actual putting it together.
Yeah, that option takes the longest to go from where we are today to fully implementing the entire service plan for EPATs. That's what I mean by slowest. Yeah.
I do have a question. So right now, the routes that you showed with the extensions, sorry, I forgot the terminology.
That's okay.
That's what our current contribution agreements are
Correct.
centered around, right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, I think it would be in our best interest, right, as we're contributing to some type of reliable transit service, right? That we look at the option that gives us the greatest flexibility in terms of implementation. So I think that if we're looking at option 4, that, certainly we could take baby steps type of approach, and then come back later with something a little bit more in terms of the implementation, because I think that in the end is that when we look at, the boarding and the alighting and the value of time, going back to, why transit isn't being used in certain areas, for me, it just opens up bigger questions, right? But I think for purposes of this discussion, I think, option 4 would probably be our best option.
I agree. I don't like how long it's going to take, and that was going to be my question. In terms of procurement, is this proposed to be a separate vendor than the one that we have now? Or we'd have to procure that either way because First Transit wasn't qualified for this type of service, right?
Reina Mayorga, Transportation Planner. That's correct, Mr. Landeros. What I would see happening is there's a possibility to still amend the First Transit contract. However, if we're having it start in October of 2024, their contract ends in December of 2024. So it would be a little odd, right? If we amend it for them just to run it for those few months and then their contract ends. So we do have to go out for procurement. And we'd like to go out for procurement, starting to get the RFP put together, I would say at the latest fall of this year, and going out to bid early summer. I want us to be able to review those and award the bid by summer of next year, so that the contractor or whomever gets the bid has 6 months to prepare to come in and do that service. Because if it's not First Transit, then that service provider needs time to prepare to come in and take over the service that we need. Additionally, when the bid packet is going to be advertised, we are considering doing separate packets. So a separate packet for ADA and a separate packet for the general public demand response, so that if one provider can do it all, they can respond to all of it. Or maybe there are other providers that only do ADA or only do the general public demand response, and that gives opportunities for us to have more responders. So I would think that if we move forward with option 4, we would start writing the RFP for the GPDR now, and the contract would essentially start in October. So if we start the RFP and writing it now and going out and going through purchasing for that, purchasing was saying that it's taking about 6 months to go through our process. So if we're able to write that within the next 3 and then maybe get it out for bid spring, then that would prepare whomever gets that bid to start in October.
So one of the things that I think I'm thinking through here is, I know the LGC has flexibility with regard to procurement. Some of that flexibility is lost with the funding with federal dollars. However, I'm wondering if that is one of the first services, and knowing that the timing of First Transit contract is coming up, I know we've had a discussion previously about kind of phasing in the structure of the contract and everything else, and kind of how it relates to the county providing the service versus the LGC. But I wonder if this procurement might be a way for us to test the waters and go out through the COG and have the COG be, as part of the administrative and fiscal agent responsibilities, procure this. I don't think we're going to go 6 months to procure this. It might be faster. And then the county, in terms of the funding that is coming in for the transit district, can enter into an interlocal agreement with the LGC for this purpose to meet that requirement, the federal, because we're allowed to contract with other governments for the service. And then the LGC goes and we procure everything and do that. And I think if this goes well, and if we can move on this fairly quickly, some of these timelines might start to move up a little bit. These are like worst case, but I mean, it'd be great to see more movement on this quickly.
That's a good example of when we say that this is the service plan that we're going to move forward with and adopt, but there are things that might change, right? So if we were able to add GPDR earlier, then essentially your contribution amount would increase, but we wouldn't see that until the end of the year when we're doing reconciliation and then moving forward into the next fiscal year.
I think it's a good idea going through the COG. I think it would be a lot faster.
Right.
So, Mr. Estrada, the motion, if everybody's in agreement insofar as option 4, do we need to vote on that first, then maybe direction on the rest of it?
So I have a proposed motion, but let me ask Michael a question. Michael, what you've presented today are options for service implementation, but it's not a final plan yet, right? The plan is to bring that back next month? Or?
So, yes, with a caveat, right? So we do need direction from the board. If the board chooses option 4 as the direction to move ahead with, then that gives us enough information to come back at the next meeting with the FY24 contribution amounts and the service plan associated with that. We would ask if the board has any other desired changes to see in FY24, because option 4 doesn't get into that level of detail. So I mentioned like non-loss service changes, like adding Sunday service. If there's anything in there that the board would like to see us cost out and bring back to you in the July meeting, we need to know today.
So
That makes sense?
I have a motion prepared for, authorizing TTI to move forward with finalizing option 4 as your final service plan for fiscal year 2024. But I guess what Michael's asking for is, are there any other specific, requests that the board wants to make of TTI at this point as part of
Cost out. You mentioned Sunday service. Would any of you be interested in seeing what the extra expense would be?
I would like to see that. I think that's one of the things that in terms of the transit world, right, we tend to target, say Monday through Friday, right? And then we have special hours on Saturday, and then if we're lucky, maybe Sunday. So I think it would be worthwhile for us to examine that.
I think on our next meeting, we can always say no to that portion of it, can we not?
Right.
Has Sun Metro resumed Sunday service?
Yes.
Because I know that was one of the conversations last year.
Yes, I do want to also add that if we even make those slight changes and we just add Sunday service to Route 10, then that gives it the eligibility to draw down from CMAQ because it's a new service.
Right.
So.
And I do have a question on 40X. 40X goes from Tornillo down to Mission Valley Transfer Center, follows Alameda. That's a straight shot.
40X actually uses I-10. So it's an express route that uses it leaves from Mission Valley, gets onto I-10, comes all the way down into Tornillo and does like a loop back into Fabens and then back onto I-10 and then Mission Valley. And it would run only during peak hours. So I believe it's like 7 to 9 in the morning and then again from like 4 to 6 or 3 to 5, something like that in the evening. But it's only ran during those peak and it's an express route.
So that wouldn't affect the contribution agreements or the revenue service miles for any other agency except the county.
Correct.
So I would say that we look at both of those non-loss service change options that, as presented here, the Sunday service to all routes, and then adding Route 40X.
That'd be
That's
part of
doable.
the motion.
I think so.
I think so.
Do we need a motion, or can we just kind of generally give direction?
You actually don't need a motion because the motion, the final action is going to be approving the actual final service plan, and that's for the next meeting. If there's a consensus that it's going to be option 4, in addition to the analysis that you've all added now, so Michael, do you feel like you know what you're being directed to do?
Yes, I do.
So I don't think you need to take an action today.
Other than voting for option 4, or not even that?
Not even that, Chair, because there's a consensus, and then the actual final approval will happen in July.
So TTI now Michael is going to go back and will finalize everything for option 4, come back with those cost estimates. I think those cost estimates can continue to include the other municipalities in the event that there's a request to reconsider or joining the LGC. We have those dollars ready to go. Yeah, I think that would be good.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good presentation.
No action on items 11 and 12. Item 14, discuss and take appropriate action regarding establishing transit office space in the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation, EPATS LGC service area.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I asked for this item to be added to the agenda. 90, large percentage of the county transit service area is located in East El Paso, and so right now we currently have, if a rider wants to purchase a bus pass, they have to come downtown, and so our services are not downtown. Our services are not in the city. The county does have an annex spaces across the community, but they're all full, and so. The thought was whether or not we could entertain identifying space in the west side and then something on the east side to allow for greater access for this. It would allow us to have space for community meetings. I know that the transit staff is working pretty diligently on moving our transit center operations because we're currently leasing land from the city at the Union Depot, but they've indicated to us that property is likely going to be sold off to Texas Tech as they expand the School of Architecture in their facility. And so our buses will no longer have the ability to be there. But at the same time, moving them over to the east side will reduce a lot of the no revenue miles that our buses experience when they're traveling from the center to out here. And so while we wait for that center to be constructed, it's going to be somewhere on the east side. I know that the staff, so there's a lot. So effectively what I was hoping to do is see if there's consensus from the board to direct staff to work on identifying options on establishing presence out in different areas. Maybe it's in municipal properties that are owned. There's some really great properties along the Mission Trail that have been, that have a public government presence that perhaps could be another space that we could look at. The question I did have for staff was whether or not any of these possible leases or whatever the case may be, if we went with a private space, if the funding that we receive would help cover some of those costs.
Raina Mayerga, transportation planner. We would have to ask TxDOT, but I believe that it could be covered under an operational cost, because we would be our office space essentially, and so that's still part of the operations, and so I believe that it could be, but we haven't gotten a chance to ask TxDOT explicitly.
Okay, and I know that First Transit's also expressed an interest in expanding some of their dispatch or call center operations, right?
Yes, so with conversations beginning about the ADA paratransit, which we want to implement January 1, we would be amending the current First Transit contract if we go with First Transit, because right now it's just discussions and they should be providing us fees based off of our estimated need. So if we're still, it looks really good that it would be with First Transit and amending the current contract. And so part of that would require a more dispatch and call center for the ADA paratransit services. And so right now, there is space at the current Union Depot. However, it's possible that if they ask for the office space that's upstairs or they ask for another room here or there, that their lease would be increased. So if we find an area where it can house the ADA paratransit call center as well as maybe there's extra office space for us, then that's kind of like, we're heading in the right direction. That's what the transit facility would entail at some point, having our service providers there, call center, dispatch, and us as well.
I mean, eventually the idea is for transit staff to be housed with the transit operator in the new transit facility. But that transit facility, you know, is years out in terms of 4 years, 4 to 5 years out. So we do, you know, as we continue to evaluate the relationship between the county's operations and its staff and the LGC, this is just kind of like a natural step in that direction. So if there's, but even then, even if there's a space that each, you know, each of the municipalities or like the county have, that might make sense to have some space to make, you know, office hours for transit staff more readily available. I mean, that's something that I think we can also evaluate. So that's really it. I mean, there's nothing definitive at this time, but before asking staff to start, you know, looking at options and then bring something back to us, I wanted to ensure that the board was in agreement with this moving forward.
Any objections?
So I think that's it. No action, just direction. Yeah. So I mean, anything you all find, just share with us. Is yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Item number 14, no action. Item number 15, receive updates and reports from El Paso County Transit staff regarding ongoing transit projects and other transit matters.
Good afternoon, Reina Mayorga, Transportation Planner. We just gave an updated ridership chart. As mentioned earlier, we're seeing, increasing slightly. We do have some of the routes which seem to be decreasing, but overall, I think we had mentioned this in previous meetings. We're just unsure why ridership is so up and down, and we couldn't say what that is from. We did make the change to Route 20. I'm not sure if you remember, we said we were going to start it at the third stop at 5:30 in the morning as opposed to the transit center. And Mr. Sedna did receive a phone call. I don't know if you want to.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Jesus Serna, Transit Planner. We did have those changes on the 1st of June. And 5 hours in the changes, I got a call from an advocate from the riderships that didn't like the first change when we had changed it and they made it longer. So when she called me, she said, thank you for listening. Everybody that, wasn't in compliance with the first change, now they're happy that we listened to them. So I explained to her, thank you. And I told her, thank you. And, it takes time, right? I told her that we do the studies, we make the changes, and then we see how it was an effect. So when she said thank you that we listened, I told her, that's what we're here for, to make everything better for them.
So it's favorable overall?
Yes.
Overall, yes. It was good. It was a good phone call. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I like those phone calls. I don't like the other ones.
And then we can
Thank you.
move on. I'll just go quickly to task orders. So we have completed task order 2 on the 5307 funding, which has been ongoing discussions. Task order 4 is the financial update to fiscal year 23 and 25. But as we need TTI to give us fiscal year 24 numbers, we put that on hold so that we can focus on the fiscal year 24 for now. And once we finalize fiscal year 24 and we're moving on from those contribution amounts, we can further discuss whether to have TTI complete task order 4 with just fiscal year 25, or maybe revitalize it or have a new task order to provide the board with a 5-year financial plan. And so then the other task orders we have is task order 5, which Michael mentioned today, is an implementation plan. So part of what we discussed earlier and finalizing fiscal year 24 will help in our implementation plan moving forward. And then I'll pass this along to Mr. Marquez for the passenger shelter update.
Okay, members of the board, Daniel Marquez. Just an all update on the passenger shelters project. Right now, as mentioned before, we are just about to complete the 100% plans PSNEs. Well, anyway, those have been already completed, but we did additional coordination with the Texas Department of Transportation based on most of the shelters are in the roadway. So we will coordinate with them for proper, I will say, alignment with future projects. One, it will be Alameda extension, where they are going to do additional improvements with Alameda from City El Paso limits all the way to Horizon Boulevard. They are doing multiple improvements, so we wanted to align with their project as well, the ones on Darrington, Darrington, with coordination with CO Horizon, as well the improvements at Horizon Boulevard. So because of those, we were coordinating from day one, but now that they seem that they are going to advertise a project in the next months, we want to just to double ensure that we were, I will say, when their footprint required. So that was almost completed, and the other one is we are just pending, in this case, environmental clearance from FTA, the Federal Transportation Administration, just final approval, as well just small documents on the bid package. Hopefully, as I mentioned before, the goal will be to advertise. If we receive approval from Texas on this month, probably we can advertise within the next 3 months and begin the construction of the project, of course, after the procurement process and execution of agreements. Project is ongoing, and hopefully with the comments received from the color scheme to be selected, those will be incorporated within the plans. Thank you.
I have a question on structuring the bid for that. So given that right now we're in the process of evaluating what service is going to be for the city of Socorro, I think previously you mentioned perhaps looking at the stops that are located there that are proposed in these first phases and bringing them down from full shelters to just assign a stop. But I also don't know if how that, I guess it's, if we're going to put anything in, a sign is easier to take out than a full shelter, right? But, in the event that they reconsider and they look at, rejoining sooner rather than later, I would hate to miss an opportunity to have that because they were identified as priority for a reason. And then even as we look at what the needs of a circulator between Horizon and Socorro might look like, that still remains. So I'm wondering if there's a way for us to structure the bid, and I think we discussed this previously, Daniel, right? Can the bid be structured in such a way that that group of shelters is identified kind of as an alternate bid, and then in the event that there's some reason that we decide that we need those, that we can, authorize that in the event that we don't need it, we don't have to pay the contractor for that?
Yes, actually, we are going to, as we speak, we are coordinating a meeting with a design consultant just to properly how we can, I would say, draft a verbiage when the contract, when the bid package, where to give a stand to the LGC. Those shelters are inside City of Socorro jurisdiction. We will have to label them and say those will be the last phase of the project. Because a project is anticipating to be a 1.5 year construction development, we are going to tell the contractor those will be the last phase of the project, but at this moment it will be just anticipating the worst, just category 3, which will be just a bus stop sign. And of course, as we move forward, hopefully with Socorro negotiation, if they are participating to the LGC when the next month, we are also going to establish a language that, okay, we are going to add additional passenger shelters, so upgrade those from category 3 to the categories pertinent that was from the initial design. So we're looking to all those, I will say, trying to fill as much gaps, I would say unforeseen circumstances to properly how to reflect those changes based on Socorro. Of course, we are going to have a plan anticipating the worst case scenario, and from there it's easy just to add. Of course, making the assumptions that we don't want to have change orders because those are a higher price, but just to say upfront to the contractor, this is what we are anticipating, and we were looking just to have an option just to add 10 passenger shelters, give us a price, plus give us a possibility on how much it will be per passenger shelter in addition, without, I would say, not having any limit. Probably we will have the language to extend more than 30, which will be is more than sufficient, but we will try to cover anything that a contractor will see an opportunity to have additional shares, change orders, or additional fees to us.
And on that note, just kind of, can you send us a breakdown of the shelters by agency?
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, what if there's, benches in Sanelli that the city, that upon receiving that information, the city decides that they have an interest in upgrading it to a shelter, a full shelter. Would that be, and if the city agreed to cover that cost, would that be possible?
It will be the best option. It will be possible. That unfortunately, I foreseen that that will be, well, as I mentioned, we are going to extend the number as much as possible, but we will have just to be a little careful because we will have to be honest with the contractor that this, because that was not part of the original contract in a way, even though that we inflate the numbers, probably they have the authority to charge a change order, but it's a possibility just to extend it when the original contract, in this case, it will be the county and the contractor, just to pretty much, just an example, if Village of Binton wants to upgrade those shelters from category 1 to from 3 to 1 or from 3 to 2, pretty much it will be the best solution. It will be from Village of Binton to reimburse the county. So we will have to come to an interlocal agreement or with the LGC. And then, of course, the county will pay upfront because I think it will be taxed out. Of course, that maintenance, going back a little bit, it is a competitive bid process where the bids that we open, they are really also compared to the idea that we're still going to have sufficient funding. We will not need a participation of the LGC to upgrade as many shelters or benches that we can. But if there's any, not shortfall, but we want to do additional improvements, that will be a coordination with the LGC. And yes, it will be the flexibility to that.
Yes, I think looking at what is proposed in each respective agency would be helpful, because then with that information, we can each go back to our agency and say, is this a priority that we want to explore? And if so, as we enter budget, that might be another cost that is not part of the contribution agreement, but might be something that individually, an agency says, we want to upgrade it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess just to add what Mr. Landeros was saying is that in terms of the upgrade, as we just kind of use it, I mean, there's some environmental clearance component to that. So if we have, like, for example, if we just have a bench, in San Eli, and we have no sidewalks, we have no ADA amenities. So certainly, upgrading would be maybe something that could be challengeable in terms of just simply upgrading.
Well, that is a little bit, I would say, a little bit more complex of a question. The main reason is the funding that was received from FTA, it was just for the passenger shelters improvements. There's, when the environmental process, it was just to clear a certain footprint within the shelter and of course some contingency just to allow the construction workers. The additional constraint, it was a funding. Funding can be only utilized for improvements related to the passenger shelters and just to close no more than 100 linear feet of sidewall. Sidewall, it will be if it's sidewall with 100 linear feet or less, we can close that gap. But if there's no sidewall, we cannot extend outside of that. And unfortunately, even though that, just an example, if by the end of the day we have $100,000, even though we tell Texas we would like to use this funding left just to connect for additional sidewalls or passenger shelters, if it was not called from the additional environmental clearance, we cannot do it. What we did just to be, because we were anticipating the whole, well, crossing fingers, it was going to be a competitive process. All the category 2, they had the flexibility to be upgraded to 1 without making any changes to the environmental clearance. Similar in a way, it will be for those category 3. So we are already anticipating for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on item 15?
Go. Chairman?
Okay.
Members of the board, Jesus Sena, El Paso County Transit Planner. So on the Wi-Fi update, the vendor did come to the facility to install the routers in the buses. When they were going to go live, they asked me for the guest Wi-Fi terms and conditions. The county does not have one, so they send me a default, language, and our attorneys are actually drafting they drafted one and we're just reviewing it. So once we are set with the language, we're going to give it back to the vendor so he can open up the network, and then we're going to troubleshoot.
Okay, when you say our attorney is Mr.
El
Estrada?
No, I'm sorry, El Paso County attorneys, sorry.
How long is it? So wait, can you?
So there's no terms, so when you log into the network, like when you go to a hotel
Oh, okay,
and you
got it.
go into the you have
And
to
it says
agree.
you have to accept the terms?
Exact, for liability purposes.
Just, you know who has those? Taco Cabana.
That would come out. And,
Taco Cabana has Wi-Fi. It's a true story.
and additionally to that, our mobile provider reached out to me saying that they passed the law, Governor Abbott passed the law about TikTok being banned from government agencies, networks. So we have to ban that as well. So that's something that we're working on. So
And can you
even though the county does not have that, I think that the buses, we should be proactive, just get it ready. So that's why it's taking me a little bit longer.
Can you share that information with Mr. Estrada also, please?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
All right.
okay, thank you.
You mean
The agreement.
The agreement, okay.
So once it's approved by county attorney?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Did they give you a timeline to develop the terms and conditions?
He didn't. He just, the vendor just told me as soon as you have those terms and conditions, just give it to me and I'll open it.
No,
and
I
I'll-
meant the county attorney's office.
No, well, she reached out to me yesterday. She sent me the draft. So I told her I'll have any revisions on Friday for her, this Friday.
So then so you said you would troubleshoot, you'd go live to troubleshoot. When do you anticipate that
I
happening?
want to say, on the safe side, I want to say end of summer. End of summer. I want to be quicker, but troubleshooting? Oh, troubleshooting would be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. We'll troubleshoot in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
So that would mean that you wouldn't publicize it,
Not yet. Yeah,
but
not
you
yet.
would have the signals on and you would do
Correct.
I guess you all are going to have to ride the bus. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
each one of them, yes, I am.
It's going to be sort of like a soft opening until you get it right.
Yes, exactly, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more information on this item?
Okay, item 15, no action. Item number 17, adjournment.
I'd like to say something real quick. Hopefully, I'm within the legal bounds. Just for the board to keep in mind that maybe as we move into the future, that we think about establishing some sort of advisory committee that will help us navigate some of these things. Just an advisory committee that who it's comprised of is up to us. But that's something to talk about in the future. I was talking to Mr. Bañales about this. And, what we don't know, we don't know. And I'm always in favor of information that gets to us on, an advisory type, and we can digest it and see if it helps or it does not help. That's something to keep in mind. Okay, thank you all for coming. This meeting is long. It reminds me almost of Commissioner's Court. And so, but thank you. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Commissioner
And we'll
Leo?
see you in our next meeting.
I'm sorry, may I ask a question? For the next meeting, do you want that meeting here at the courthouse or at the Rio Grande Council of Governments office off Airway?
Well, it's up to the board. It's probably a little more central.
Whatever you all think.
I just want to ensure that where we hold it just has to have the capacity for our broadcasting or IT. So I don't know if is that a good place?
We would have to, Alexa Ortiz with County Administration, we would have to scout the area first to see if we have those capabilities to live stream over there.
Okay.
But you're always welcome to have it here as well.
So we can vote, or we can say, I don't know how it works, but I guess we can have the board agree to have it at the COG if we have sufficient equipment or needs for IT, for broadcasting.
Okay, is it central enough for you all?
And just for the members, it doesn't have to be at the Council of Governments, but I know that the county has been taking the majority of the responsibility. So if that's something that you would want from the Council of Governments, we would be prepared to do that. We do not have the YouTube streaming ability where it's live, but if somebody were to get onto the Teams, that's the only way they would be able to see it. But I know that those are invited, so if it's easier, but we can work on getting that for you all. But if you would like for the next meeting to stay here at the county courthouse, that's fine. Just something for you all to think about.
I think that's what we, and I apologize, I believe that's what Alexis mentioned, is that they could still broadcast it from there. So they would just take their camera equipment and whatnot. So I guess it would just have to be IT to go out there first to see if what he mentioned is available.
And then, but I think that we took action, one of like those administrative housekeeping items to establish the meeting place.
Right.
And so I think Mr. Estrada would have to look at the flexibility that we would need, whether we need to formally designate a new meeting place. I think that's all required.
That's correct. You know, just thinking about even moving the location, clearly doable, but there's things you need to look into. So I would say that the default be next month's meeting is here, unless, you know, we find that we can hold it at the COG, or even at the next meeting, we might bring an an agenda item to update you on, you know, the feasibility of changing the location.
Okay, for the time being, we'll meet here unless we notify you that it's been cleared for another location. I think we covered all the spots we wanted to.
Just to say that the next regular meeting is going to be scheduled for July 19th, same place, same time.
In here?
We're adjourned.
Well, it might be, I have to get with facilities on reservations, so it could be here, it could be lower level, but that would be, we would let you
This
know.
building. So we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
This concludes the meeting at 5:04 PM.